If you're watching this, you're probably thinking some version of, I want to do this the calm way, but I'm terrified it's going to cost a fortune. And that's fair. For most people, the fear isn't the paperwork. It's the unknown. It's that question of how expensive is this going to get? And what makes it go off the rails? So in the next few minutes, I'm going to give you a clear, realistic framework for how costs typically work in an amicable divorce in Florida. What drives costs up, what keeps things controlled, and how to tell if this approach is even a fit for your situation. I'm Ana Augusto. I'm a Florida family law attorney here in Miami, and I've guided hundreds of families through this process, including a lot of people who came in feeling exactly the way you're feeling right now. Quick note, this is general information for Florida. It's not legal advice and it's not a quote for your case. Every situation is different, and we'll talk about your specific facts in your strategy session. So why am I talking about money this early? Because money anxiety is one of the biggest reasons people either avoid getting help or they wait. They wait until things get escalated so much that everything becomes harder and more expensive. The goal here is not to scare you. The goal is to help you understand what you're paying for, why costs change, and how we narrow expectations based on your situation, calmly and honestly. Now, when you strip it down, divorce costs usually rise for two reasons. The first is complexity. More assets, more moving parts, more decisions to make, more documents to review. Think real estate, retirement accounts, a business, complicated income, or significant debt. The second, conflict. When communication breaks down, when information gets withheld, when every single issue becomes a fight, that's expensive. Not because anyone's trying to punish you, but because it takes more time, more back and forth, more follow-up, and sometimes more formal steps just to move things forward. An amicable approach tends to be more cost control, but only when it stays focused on solving problems instead of escalating them. So how do fees typically work? In divorce cases, it's usually one of two ways. Either a flat fee for a clearly defined scope or a retainer with hourly billing, where the total depends on how much work the case actually requires. Neither is automatically better. What matters is the scope, the complexity, and whether the process stays calm and cooperative, because the more it turns into conflict management, the more time that it takes, and time is what drives the cost. In many amicable cases, fees often start in the range of $3,500 to $6,500, but could be several thousand more, depending on the factors I'm about to walk you through. But I want to be clear, that's a general range. Your situation may be different. All right, here are the biggest factors that tend to move cost up or down in an amicable divorce. Number one, how many issues are truly disputed? If the two of you are aligned on most things, it's usually more efficient. If you're far apart on everything, it takes longer. That's just the reality. Number two, kids and parenting schedules. Parenting plans require detail and clarity. When parents stay child-focused and practical, it tends to move faster. But when conflict spills into parenting decisions, that takes more work to stabilize. Number three, assets and debts. The more you have and the more complex the assets are, the more time it takes to understand what exists and work toward a fair division. And for more complex assets like a business, we usually need to get a neutral expert involved to do a fair evaluation. That's just part of the process. Number four, transparency and responsiveness. Let me tell you, costs go up when documents are missing, delayed, incomplete, or constantly changing. Not because anyone's trying to punish you, but because the work becomes harder when the information is harder to get. So the more organized you are coming in, the better it is. Number five, pace and urgency. If you need everything handled immediately, it can require more concentrated time and coordination. That's going to affect the cost. And number six, the other side's posture. Are they cooperative? Are they represented? Or are they actively obstructing progress? That makes a big difference, and it's something we can't always control, but we can plan for. So what's typically included? At a high level, an amicable divorce process usually includes identifying the decisions that need to be made, gathering the key information, negotiating toward a workable agreement, and preparing the documents to finalize everything. What usually expands the scope is anything that pulls the case into heavier conflict. Repeated breakdowns in cooperation, disputes that don't move, missing information, or a situation where the gap between positions is just too wide right now. And that's why amicable is not just a label, it's a process choice. It requires a certain mindset to stay efficient. So who is this a fit for? An amicable approach usually works when you're aiming for fair and livable. You want to keep the temperature down and you're willing to focus on priorities instead of trying to win every single point. It's often for people who can accept this truth. Sometimes you give up something to gain something, like peace, time, privacy, and the ability to move forward without dragging your life through a long fight. And here's what a lot of people don't realize. When you and your spouse work it out together, you actually control the outcome. You make the decisions. A judge has to follow what the law says. But in an agreement, you can sometimes get a better result than a courtroom would ever give you. Now, it's often not a fit when one person is focused on payback, or refuses transparency, or there's such a wide gap that agreement just isn't realistic right now. And if there are safety concerns or intimidation, we handle that differently. Safety and stability comes first, always. In your strategy session, we'll take these cost drivers and apply them to your facts. So you leave with a clearer picture of what you're dealing with, what path makes sense, and what a predictable next step looks like. Before we meet, complete the short prep packet, especially the one-page calm prep sheet, because the more clarity you bring into the conversation, the more useful your strategy session will be. And just remember, this is general information for Florida, not legal advice. But if your goal is a predictable path without drama, you're exactly who this process was designed for.